Reiner was one of the most requested names I got in the last part to this series. And for good reason. He had one of the best runs in contenders in Overwatch history, with his Wikipedia being filled in first place positions. Come the 2022 season of the Overwatch League, Gladiators decided to pick him up, and they did pretty well, at least for the beginning first two stages, coming first in the kickoff clash, and coming first again in the mid-season madness. However, things started to fall apart in the Summer Showdown during the Queen meta, which, thanks to the Wayback Machine, you can see how it got him salty enough to tweet about how zero skilled the meta was. He was known for deactivating his account after he posted these inflammatory tweets, and honestly, I think Reiner was being half serious, half joking. At the end of the 2022 season though, Reiner didn't join a team. Not because he was bad, but on Reddit, he said he had some serious physical health issues. More specifically, his ribcage was very inflamed, which made it impossible for him to sit or lay on his side. He said at the end he's gonna focus on getting healthy again, without expectation to play professionally for a very long time. Finishing off with how he wants some privacy. The last activity I could find from Reiner was on his Reddit account 10 months ago, basically saying that he was just an emergency sub on a team, and how he just had eye surgery. Barring that though, I can't find anything else on Reiner. He doesn't have a LinkedIn account, it's been 2 years since he streamed, and his Twitter seems to be deactivated. For now, I think Reiner is done with his time in the limelight. Keeping up with the Gladiators theme, Patiphan, or however you pronounce his name, was also one of the biggest names in 2022. He actually got notoriety all the way back in the 2018 World Cup, where he was 15 years old playing for Team Thailand. Of course, he was too young to join the league, but as soon as he reached 18, he joined the Gladiators in 2022. Of course, going through those same accolades as Reiner, and retiring from the league at the end of the year to go back to Valorant. However, he actually retired from Valorant at the end of 2023, citing a lack of a competitive drive, even though he knew that he had the talent to compete. Since then, he's actually spent his time streaming Deadlock, and as of the writing of this script, he's currently live, so it seems like he's pretty active. His viewership has declined and become more sporadic, but even at his lowest, he's still pulling viewership that anyone would be envious of. Speaking of another Thai player, who was also requested by popular demand, Mikeyy was a 2018 household name. Of course, he played for Dallas and actually won the Dennis Awelka Award in 2018. To be honest, I never went over him in my last parts, because I just thought he went MIA, but thankfully, to my surprise, I couldn't be further from the truth. Similar to people like Gaguri and Ru Jae Hong, Mickey's been consistently uploading on YouTube, mainly centering his brand around Valorant. He also regularly streams on YouTube, with his longer streams being watch parties that gained tens of thousands of viewers. This took me really off guard, but it's good to see him be active. Lastro was a pretty solid, memorable support player for Houston and Glads, of course being infamous for the Icon World chat incident. Funnily enough, if you go back to the original VOD, they edited out the match chat, likely with the built-in YouTube editor. According to his Wikipedia, Lastro's last pro appearance was for the Australian team The Great Showman, but according to his Wikipedia, it says that he went to quietly complete his mandatory military service. What's even weirder is that if you check the source reference, it says that Wikipedia gained this information from a trusted inside source, which kinda reminds me of this.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Regardless, Lastro's last online activity was him just retweeting Smash's LFT. Hopefully, like Choihyobin, he'll come back to Overwatch after his military service. Void was one of the best off-tank players Overwatch has ever seen, going on an insane hot streak in 2021 with the Shanghai Dragons. In fact, he was so good that he was named the #1 off-tank of all time by Platchat.
Number one is Void, of course. Void has the history, the talent, the accolades to be the best off-tank in Overwatch history and make a case for overall GOAT.
He finished off his career on the Seoul Dynasty in the last year of the league, but since then, he's retired, and there isn't much left to gather on what he's up to. His last stream was 8 months ago, and the last activity I could find of him was retweeting some of Jexay's art in August, which many other Korean players did as well. Iris had a short but sweet tenure towards the tail end of the league. He spent a year at Atlanta, who had their most successful year ever, having gotten to the grand finals. Then he spent the following year bouncing between Houston and Seoul, then he spent his final year on Shanghai. This year, he spent time playing on Poker Face and what seems to be a Saudi Arabian org, but he's been LFT ever since. Despite that, his Wikipedia says he retired on the 2nd of July. He's not that inactive though, having streamed only 2 months ago and giving Viper a retweet a month ago too. I don't even know where to start with Gator. Pretty much all of his time in the league was spent on the Atlanta Reign, most well known for his Vine play. He then moved to coaching the Reign in 2023, then he went to MAT in 2024. However, as many of you already know, he retired about a month ago. His tweet was very long, so I'm just gonna paraphrase the important bits. He said he was gonna finish school this fall and then work on his masters. He cited how he would have stuck around if something reasonable was offered from Overwatch as an esports, and how that Saudi money is not worth it. I know Gator's got a reputation for coaching amazing teams that severely underperformed, whether it be the Reign, or Team USA, or even MAT, but you can't deny the man's legacy. Keeping with the Atlanta theme, Speedily was one of the most hyped up names heading into the 2022 season. Atlanta already bought him in 2022, so that when he turned 18 during the Summer Showdown, he could play. However, while he wasn't bad, the general consensus was that he was a bit underwhelming. Things got even worse during his time on Toronto, where Speedily left alongside Sam and OG. Since then, he's basically been MIA. His last activity was 5 months ago, both on Twitter and on his Twitch, and he's probably not playing professionally because financially it just doesn't make sense. TviQ is one of the players of all time. If you're new to Overwatch, you won't have a clue about who this guy is, but he's most well known for being one of the best players in 2016, and according to Avast, he wanted a $1 million contract for his first year in the league.
All I know about TviQ as well is that he supposedly wanted like $1 million in season 1. He wanted like $1 million salary.
If you're curious on where he's at now, he's now become a streamer, specifically streaming Deadlock, with his last stream being 3 days ago. If you check his Twitch tracker, you can see a humongous drop off from 2016, from 2,000 viewers to just a handful. In fairness, he did get a small boost to around 60 viewers with the hype of Deadlock. Continuing with that Florida theme, Sayaplayer was one of the most underrated hit scans in the 2018 and 2019 season. In fact, he was so good that he still held the Overwatch League records for the most amount of final blows in a single map, being 42 against the LA Valiants. Unfortunately, Florida still lost this series. Since 2020 though, Sayaplayer made a very successful transition to Valorant, and just to put it in perspective, Instalock put Sayaplayer as the 3rd top rated player from VCT in July, and when Sayaplayer posted his LFT just over a month ago, it got over 1 million views and 11,000 likes. And that is literally just from an LFT. Looking back at the past, it's great to see an underrated player finally get the recognition they deserve, but at the same time, it's sad to see Sayaplayer not even be given a chance on a top level Overwatch team. It's probably because of GOATs, which just killed Hitscan at the time, but still, it's good to know he's doing well. Munchkin was one of the less notable Overwatch names, at least for me personally, but likewise to Sayaplayer, he made a great transition to Valorant. To keep it short, he spent the majority of his time in 2018 and 2019 playing for the Seoul Dynasty, before retiring in the summer of 2020 for a team called Lucky Future. Since then, he moved to Valorant, having a pretty star-studded accolades. He's currently on an organisation called Gen G, who didn't do that well in the recent VCT tournaments, but regardless, it looks like he's doing pretty well for himself now. Snillo is one eccentric man. If you don't know who he was, he spent 2018 and 2019 playing for the Philadelphia Fusion and for their academy team. However, it's not his performance that's the most interesting part, it's him living in a forest with his grandmother picking mushrooms.
When he finally shows up, he said he was living in the forest in Sweden with his grandmother, foresting in the woods for mushrooms, and was not joking.
But didn't he go to went and played for T1 though after this, right?
No, yeah, so then him and I went to Korea, but he's like, I don't know, at some point he woke me up at 1 in the morning just eating a chicken breast off a piece of cardboard that he microwaved.
But that doesn't explain where Snillo is now. Where is Snillo now?
Still in the he probably went back to his grandmother's house in the forest in Sweden, where he.
So
has
you're
no
telling
internet.
me that in between him being an esports player, he goes and performs a dramatic fairy tale in the forest?
That's the way he explained it to me, man.
The most recent update of Snillo was from a tweet longer by the former Fusion manager in early 2023. Apparently, the manager used to contact Snillo's parents by email to see how he was doing, and it's about what you expect. Snillo working out, hanging out with his friends, and collecting mushrooms and berries. To me, it seems that Snillo is terminally offline, which is probably for the best. Okay, putting Chipsa in this video is a bit of a meme, but he was technically on the Fusion at one point. I actually made a video on my B-Size channel talking about the situation, but in short, due to what was basically a great marketing campaign by Fusion, they decided to sign Chipsa onto their roster. Of course, they never had any plans of seriously integrating him into the team, but he did play and win a map on Oasis Gardens, playing his signature Doomfist. There was some drama at the time between Chipsa and Jane, where I think there is a legit discussion to be had on whether it's actually fair that a player can basically get a free 50k for just being a marketing stunt, especially to those players who would have been grinding in contenders. Gesture is absolutely an Overwatch League veteran. Being involved in 5 out of the 6 seasons, he of course won the league in 2018 on the Spitfire, finishing his career on the NYXL as an assistant coach. Unfortunately, this section's going to be short. His last stream was 3 years ago, his Instagram is seemingly deactivated, and his last tweet was in mid-2022. Ameng, one of the most Giga Chad pro players of all time, was most well known for his ball play. In particular, his ball play in 2019, which played well as a counter-meta option to GOATs. He was also known as the Yotta Chad, and Yeetle got himself into a bit of hot water for coaching Ameng's ball, which in the eyes of many, came across as a bit jealous and bitter of Ameng's success. Surprisingly, Ameng isn't fully MIA. His last pro appearance was on a team called Oldest Pro just a month ago, and his last online activity was on a Korean video site called Bilibili, where he posted a clip playing a game that I do not recognize, and it was only just a few weeks ago. Gangnamjin was one of the bright spots on the Florida Mayhem, who stuck around until the very end of the league. He finished his career on the Shanghai Dragons in 2023, but since then, there's not much to go off of. Even his Liquipedia doesn't know when he retired exactly, and the last activity I could find was him retweeting Mags LFT just a few days ago. Choihyobin was one of the big 3 in 2019, alongside Sinatra and Super, for creating one of the world's best tank lines. Of course, the first and last team Choi was ever on would be the Shock, being most well known for his diva play because of GOATs, but even when Overwatch went to role queue, Choi's Sigma and his Hog was also up to scratch. Unfortunately, he retired at the end of 2021, and his last online activity that I could find was at the end of 2022 when he was watching the Grand Finals. The last mention I could see about Choi was from Super 2 months ago, talking about how we got Choi onto the team.
I said this before. You know, it was my idea to get Choi on the Shock. Right before I was about to turn 18, they said, listen, do you want to play tank?
What's going on
Or
right
are you going to play off tank? And I said, well, I've played tank my whole fucking career before this. I don't want to change to off tank, so I'm going to stay with main tank. If I said off tank, they would have got OG, and it would have been me and OG.
I think
But because I said I want to stay main tank, they picked up Choi.
Doesn't matter.
Barring that though, nothing else is known about Choi. Flower was honestly one of the slightly more forgettable names in the league. He only spent 1 year on a mediocre NYXL roster, and it was during the GOATS meta which they didn't quite excel at. no pun intended. After then, he spent 5 months on Runaway and just kinda disappeared. That was until Deadlock came out, where he started streaming it, and if you go to his Twitch tracker, you can see the massive gap between December 2022 and August 2024, where he just didn't stream. His last stream was 12 days ago as well. It seems that Deadlock is pulling in washed up pros from every different game, but I doubt it's going to be a consistent comeback. Likely down to age, Heesu didn't come into the league until 2020 when he turned 18. He of course started on the Fusion, which as they usually go by, finished seconds. He then went to the Defiant after the 2020 season, finishing off his career on the Dragons in 2023. If you're wondering where he's at now, surprisingly it's not Deadlock, but unfortunately it's Valorant. That's obvious if you're just scrolling through his Twitter feed, where he tweets screenshots or clips of him being lobby admin, but the most recent activity of Heesu was on a Korean streaming site called Chizuk. The stream was 4 days ago and only pulled in 10 views, and I know that thanks to Google Translates. His last post on his Instagram, which I thought mentioning because 9 weeks is actually fairly normal for Insta. seems like Heesu is just chilling. Due to similar reasons of age, Edison came into the league the second he turned 18. He got snatched up by the Atlanta Reign, staying for 2 years, then of course he spent the rest of his career on the Dallas Fuel. Obviously, he's most known for his insane performance against the Shock in the 2022 finals. Fortunately, Edison has not fallen off the face of the planet. He regularly and consistently uploads YouTube content, and while he hasn't uploaded in 13 days, he streams on yet another Korean site, with his last stream being a few days ago. Unfortunately, I doubt many people, especially Western, know about Edison's path into content creation and streaming. Fitz is yet another Overwatch League veteran. He spent the first 4 years of his career on the Sword Dynasty, finishing it off on the NYXL. Fitz hasn't gone fully MIA since the league ended, but he hasn't been active either. The last activity on his Twitter was him retweeting Changoon for getting onto Zeta at the end of June, and his last stream was also 4 months ago. Barring that, I can't find anything else. Being a Fusion fan myself at the time, I can say that having MN3 was a big boon for the team. I specifically remember that one game he played on New Queen Street on Ash where it was just insane. I'll actually play the best parts because you need to see this.
Take him out, Dynamite not at the ready, otherwise you can try to flush these guys out from the back of the... Dude.
It's like we never left Circuit Royale. We're still there. We're still on Circuit Royale. MN3 gets a nano. I mean, why the hell not?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just give everything to this guy because he's going to do things like that. Quick scope in, gets the headshot. Van Ham taken out of the fight. Delaying the Transcendence, he finds Fitz as well, who just tries
what is that?
The backline, and MN3, he's going absolutely nuclear!
In terms of where he's at now, unsurprisingly, he's moved developments. More specifically, he's on the T1 Academy team, which is quite impressive. He's also fairly active too, with his last stream being 6 days ago. Oh Mikey, you thought you'd get away? Not under my watch. To give some quick background, Mikey played on a ton of NA teams, but the most notable one was of course the Shock, to where he played Winston in the Grand Finals against the Fuel. However, he did encounter some drama in 2022, but it's nothing too serious. In short, he just had 0 game and creeped out a ton of goals online. But that's the extent of it. Some people like Dante did poke fun at him, as you can see by this tweet here. However, Mikey's next bit of drama was in March earlier this year, where he, Sam and OG, got exposed for some racist Discord messages, which if you watch in earlier parts, you'll see me cover Sam and OG. Because Sam and OG were actually on a team in 2024, and because Sam directly spoke to the person who revealed these messages, the focus wasn't really on Mikey. In part because of this, he's now slipped away to the shadows with a private Twitter account with a very low follow count, so he's probably not going to accept my request, and that's it to be honest. Soon was a French hitscan player who was actually quite well known at the time. He retired in April 2021 to go to Valorant like many others. Fortunately for him, he's still on a team called Mandatory, but he's deciding to open up his options for something long term in 2025. He also streams, being last live a day ago and averaging just under 200 viewers. Looks like he's doing pretty well. Custa is a bit less serious of a player, but he technically was in the league at one point. He does have an incredibly detailed Wikipedia page detailing his career from 2017, but I'll try and summarize it. He initially started on the Fuel in 2018, but only stayed for a few months before getting traded to the Valiants. He would then stay on the Valiant until the end of 2019, where he then became broadcast talent for 3 years. He then participated on a team called Overwatch earlier this year, but that team was mainly content oriented. As of right now, he streams pretty regularly, and as of the writing of this script, he's live playing Pokemon. Custa went from a player, to a caster, to a content creator, and it looks like he's not doing too bad for himself. Okay, so after all this, I'm planning to condense all 3 parts into one big video, and to include extra names at the ends. So far, I think I've done 80 players in total, so I could add in an extra 20 to reach 100 in that final part. Let me know who you want me to cover in that final part, the most upvoted names will be included, and until next time.